Ever imagine a system where, like, 14th century Islamic law actually meets modern-day bureaucracy?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But that's exactly what we're about to dive into, Malaysia's public administration system, but through this really unique Islamic lens.
And that's what makes Malaysia so fascinating, right? I mean, we often think of public administration in a very Western way.
Totally.
But Malaysia's case study, it just shows how influential Islamic principles can be in shaping a country's approach to governance, even today.
It's wild. To guide our deep dive today, we're looking at excerpts from this academic article in the Ulamuna. Have you heard of it? It's the Journal of Islamic Studies.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's this article called Examining Public Administration Through the Islamic Lens, a glimpse of the Malaysian experience. Where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, to understand it, we really need to go back in time, like way back. What our deep dive revealed is that even before the well-known Malacca Sultanate, Islamic law was already woven into the fabric of pre-colonial Malaya.
Interesting.
And it's not just theory, right? We're talking tangible evidence. The Batu Bersurat Terengganu.
Okay.
This inscribed stone from the 14th century, it lays out these principles of Islamic law that directly impacted administration.
Wow.
Trade disputes,
Yeah.
criminal offenses, you name it, it was likely addressed through this legal framework.
Wow, that's a direct link between religious principles and, everyday governance.
Exactly.
I can already see how understanding this historical context is crucial, especially with what we know happened next, right? British colonialism, it totally reshaped the landscape.
Absolutely. As we dug deeper, we saw how the arrival of the British in the 18th century brought this wave of Western administrative models.
Yeah.
And a key difference with these models, the emphasis on secularism.
Huh.
This idea of separating religion from government, it directly challenged that existing Islamic framework.
Yeah.
And we can actually track its progression through these key legal milestones.
So it's almost like speed bumps on the road to a more westernized system.
Exactly. One speed bump was the Charter of Justice in 1807, which established British courts in the region. Then came the Civil Law of 1937, solidifying the use of English common law. Gradually, these milestones, they kind of shifted Islamic legal traditions to the sidelines of public administration.
So how did Malaysia navigate this shift towards Western administrative practices after gaining independence? Did they just keep the British model?
That's what's so interesting, right? What our deep dive revealed is that while they adopted a parliamentary democracy and a federal constitution, which were initially influenced by those British traditions, Malaysia was determined to chart its own path.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost as if they took the structure but sought to infuse it with their own values and context.
Okay, so not just a copy-paste of the British system.
Yeah.
But when we talk about values in this context, are we talking about those rooted in Islam?
Yeah.
Especially given that the country has a multi-ethnic, multi-religious population.
You hit the nail on the head. It's not about imposing one set of beliefs. It's more like this intricate dance of figuring out how Islamic values can inform and enhance their approach to public administration, but within this more modern framework. And it's played out over these distinct phases of reform, each with its own story to tell.
Okay, so tell me about these phases. This article mentions a phase I that kicked off shortly after independence. What were the defining moves during those early years?
This period, from 1965 to 1981, was all about strengthening the newly independent government's administrative capacity. A pivotal moment we uncovered was the 1965 Esmond-Montgomery Report,
Okay.
named after these two consultants brought in to assess the state of Malaysia's public service. This report acted as a roadmap for early reforms.
Consultants, they often get a bad rap, but it sounds like these two had a real impact. Did their recommendations align with Malaysia's goal of creating a system reflective of their own context?
It's interesting you bring that up because the report heavily emphasized training Malaysian public servants in, get this, the United States.
Oh.
They sent numerous officials to U.S. universities, which, let's be honest, naturally infused them with American administrative styles and even ways of thinking about public service.
Wow, talk about a lasting legacy.
Right.
So even while they were building their institutions from the ground up, there's this other layer of Western influence being woven in. Did this U.S.-centric training continue for a long time?
It did leave a mark, but as we'll uncover in Phase 2, things took a fascinating turn.